Hi everyone, it's Ren here. Good to see you guys. Happy Sunday. Today I would like to talk to you about Enneagram for a change. I mean, if you are familiar with my channel, you're no stranger to the fact that I do occasionally like to discuss the Enneagram. What you may not know in as much detail is that I spend way more time thinking about Enneagram, not just my Enneagram, but the Enneagram of other people, and the correlations between type and Enneagram than my video output on Enneagram would suggest. It's true that it's always something that I've considered more a hobby as compared to, say, my work on the INFJ. But I actually have investigated the question of Enneagram types quite a bit, and it's a topic that I like to discuss, particularly because I think that if you take the Jungian cognitive functions, right, you can translate that into the dichotomous letter type, INFJ, ESFP, so on. Of course, you can have competing systems, such as C.S. Joseph, objective personality, cognitive type, Harry Murrell's system, Michael Pierce, lots of different approaches that will offer you different perspectives on just what your cognitive type would be, because ultimately we're talking about a cognitive type, even though cognitive type is the name of a particular model. One consequence of this is that the results that you will get according to those various systems, and some people were commenting on that in my video from yesterday, where I talked about, probing you with regards whether you think of me more so as an INFJ or an ENFJ. I kind of was expecting you to go more so for INFJ, but I still wanted to ask the question. But there were some people in the comments who did say that, they went through the process of being typed by a number of different typists. I could mention Joyce Meng, and who else was mentioned? Eric, I think, host Eric, whose typing talents don't seem to be considered excellent by a wide consensus. If you may allow me this level of tact, I've never really interacted with him, so I don't know. Nevertheless, you're going to have your different typings, so maybe some of you will be INFJ here, and there will be other things there. Assuming even that those typings are correct, that is to say, true to not just to the fact about you, the external reality that is you, but true to the mechanism of the model itself through which the typing is made, you might well get different results because the systems are different. However, the question whether the results you get are mutually reinforcing in terms of how informational they are and informative, I think it's a question, it's not obvious to me that you can necessarily reconcile, say, an INFJ typing and an ESFP typing in another system. Even though the systems are different, you might say, okay, in this system I'm this, and in that other system I'm that. But it's not like, you can't really say, okay, these are two angles on me. If you look at me from this angle, I'm an INFJ. If you look at me from that angle, I'm an ESFP or whatever. I think it was... I can't remember who said that in the comments, that they got ESFP, INFJ and ESFP. You wouldn't imagine that possible, but I think it was Coneman. Hi, Coneman. And thank you for your great loyalty. I really appreciate it, and lucky to have you as part of this channel and this adventure. Supposing even that you get something closer, like you get INFJ and an INTJ or INTP. For me, it's not clear that you can say, okay, from this angle I'm INFJ, from that other angle on the same reality, just this different angle, I'm INTP. Because ultimately these systems are still trying to lay claim to the same kind of cognitive type. When you move on to Enneagram, right, things are different. And things are different because Enneagram really doesn't claim to capture your cognitive type, right? It claims to capture something else in such a way that it's really very much possible to have a compatibility where you could say, my reality from this JCF angle is INFJ, and from that Enneagram angle, is type 5, is type 4, is type 9, you know. And this is what I want to discuss a bit more in detail, you know, like the question of the relationship between our Jungian type, shall we say, and our Enneagram type. And if we can bring in a little bit of an INFJ perspective, let us do so, because that makes things even more interesting. But before I move on, this is more like a middle of the video type of advertising, shameless advertising than usual, but you have the Ecstatic Soul, which is my book on the INFJ. Get it if you haven't yet. It's less than $10, and you have it in paperback format and ebook format, and no investigation of the type is deeper than this. So there'll be a sequel coming out soon, possibly next week. Check my community section on my channel to see the cover, right? You also have The Infinite Castle, which is my novel that came out a couple of years ago. If you're into Kafka, Murakami, Dostoevsky, and you know, the rumor has it the main character is actually an INFJ viewed through a fictional lens. You get the book, you support my channel, you can also support my Patreon page down there, where I occasionally share some exclusive stuff. All of this really, really helps me. Can't emphasize that enough. Okay, so returning to the question of Enneagram, I'm sometimes asked, you know, assuming again that there's compatibility, that from one angle you're INFJ, from another angle you're type 5. Those don't cancel each other, you know. In the same way, notice that there will be cancelling between, or at least the risk of cancelling between an ESFP typing and an INFJ typing, because even if you try to really push the idea that the two models are different and don't capture the same thing, to that extent it's true, but can that really resist the inherent contradiction in having two such drastically different type results? You'll almost inevitably be compelled to ask yourself, is one of those two typings actually incorrect? Whereas if you get a type 5 typing, that won't lead you to question your INFJ type, okay? Now maybe if you get a type 8, you might want to ask yourself the question, but not if you get a type 5. And so I'm often asked, what are the most common Enneagram types for INFJs? And the response I usually give, which is a response I give to, I also have gotten from the literature, and this is a response I used to give. This is a response that has evolved to a degree, and maybe I can share this here. Now let me first give the types that I would usually, Enneagram types that I would usually associate with INFJs as being relatively common. I would give 1, I would give 2, I would give 4, I would give 5, I would give 6, and I would give 9. Right? So the first question that we can ask is, as of now, most updated version of me knowing about Enneagram and thinking about the Enneagram, are there types here that I would add to the list of types that are frequently encountered among INFJs? And you understand that I'm referring to the core of the type and not to fix, as they say, part of your tri-type and not your core. So the answer is no. The answer is no. But there are types that I would take out. Right? So before we move to looking at the types I would no longer consider common for INFJs, types, in terms of the types that I'm leaving out. Type 3, highly correlated to extroversion, not INFJ. Core 3, not 3 fix. You can perfectly well have an introvert with the 3 fix. Core 3, most likely correlated to introversion. Extrovert, pardon me. Type, we said 4, yeah. Type 7, highly correlated to extroversion, right? Forget about it, very uncommon among INFJs. Type 8, highly correlated to extroversion, and also highly correlated with well-developed and prominent SE. You'll notice type 8, very common among ESTPs. Probably the most common. they are quite common among ENTJs, right? It's been known to, ESFP type 8s actually have been known to exist. And even in rare cases, ENFJ type 8s. It's very hard to believe, but I can give you examples if you're curious. Nevertheless, you'll notice that we are talking mostly of extroverts. It's true that you'll sometimes come across ISTPs who can be 8 with a wing 9 probably. And I think that you could probably also you'll encounter type A's that are not prominent SE, but prominent NE, which is something that I can't quite explain, but you'll notice that ENTP, particularly ENTP, has it's very much possible to be a type A ENTP, it seems. But nevertheless, we're talking about mostly extroverts with highly developed SE, so forget about it. So what are we left with? Type 1 for INFJs. Totally maintain it. Very important. Very important. Any type for INFJs. Quite common. Type 2, forget about it. It might sound surprising to you, and I probably should make another video about that, because this video is going to run for a while. So, but I'll explain to you in a later video why I think that. But essentially, I think that it's quite common for INFJs to have 2 in their tri-type. In other words, to have 2 as a fix. But I just don't encounter 2 core INFJs. I think it's a highly extroverted. I think it's a type that's highly extroverted, highly correlated with extroversion again. And when it is not, it's probably highly correlated with SI over NI. I'm not excluding the possibility of an INFJ being type 2, certainly not. There are INFJ 2s, I'm not claiming it's impossible, but whereas maybe a couple years ago I would have told you, okay, it's in the top 3 most common. Now I think it's nowhere near the top 3 most common. A lot of INFJs who think they're type 2s are type 9s with 2 in their tri-type. Could be their second fix or their third fix, but usually they're type 9. That's something I've noticed. Occasionally type 1 and with their wing going to 2, but most often type 9 with 2 in their tri-type, but not 2. Very common among ENFJs, not so common among INFJs. Think about it for a second and you'll realize the difference between ENFJs and INFJs is also the difference between having a 2 core and having 2 in your tri-type. Makes sense. 4, I would decrease the prevalence of type 4s among INFJs. I think that they're more common than type 2s. I would still consider them a relatively ordinary INFJ type, or a relatively non-trivial INFJ type, I should say, but not top 3. I might have considered it very important top 3 before, but I don't think that anymore. I think that type 4, to be honest with you guys, I think type 4 is just highly correlated with P now. I think that the P spontaneity and the type 4 are very linked, and that it just doesn't work so well with INFJs. So again, I can develop that in a later video. Type 5, yes. Type 5 I would actually consider more common now than I would have in the past. It's in the top 3, I think. Type 6, absolutely. I think type 6 is in the top 3 as well. As for type 9, it's quite common. It's quite common. I would put it in the top 4. I think that if I had to order now, if a ranking, I wouldn't be able to tell you which enneatype is most common among INFJs. I can give you my top 3 in no particular order. Type 1, type 5, type 6. 4th, type 9, and 5th, type 4. Okay, so 2 is outside of the top 5, as far as I'm concerned. Now, this is all very mysterious, I'm sure, and it's probably leaving way more questions unanswered than questions answered. It's been going for a while, so hopefully you can start by giving me some reactions and what are your thoughts on your own Enneagram at the moment. If you identify as some of those types that I don't consider very common for INFJs anymore, I want to know. Let me know in the comments, and let's have this Wednesday video dedicated to exploring this a bit more detail. I have made those announcements. I have not substantiated them enough. I promise you I will do so next time. Okay, see you Wednesday then, guys. Take care. And don't forget, next week could be the week of the release of the Infinite Soul. Stay tuned.